You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market from unusual activity alerts to market analysis, strategy overviews, listener questions, and much more. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the Option Block with your host, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Media Group, and co-hosts, Uncle Mike TOSAW from St. Charles Wealth Management, along with Mark the Greasy Meatball Sebastian and Andrew the Rock Lobster Giovinazzi from OptionPit.com. And now, get ready to hit the Option Block.
All right, everybody. That music means it is time once again to kick off our broadcast week here on the Options Insider Radio Network. You know how we do that by now with episode 1 of the bi-weekly options extravaganza known as the Option Block. My name is Mark Longo from, of course, theoptioninsider.com, as well as from the aforementioned network. Glad to see so many of you folks are having fun in the coolest secret club in the world of options. If you don't know what we're talking about, you don't know about the cool pro trading crate giveaways and the live stuff and the extra shows and all the other cool stuff that we do, head on over to theoptioninsider.com. It's /pro. I have to have /secret club because that's just kind of cool. And it does seem to be resonating with a lot of you folks out there. Glad to see so many of you are enjoying it, having fun, getting a lot of value of it. And if you have questions or comments, maybe you want to learn more, theoptioninsider.com/pro is the place to go. And you know where to go for your daily dose, or I should say really double dose of options fun. It's the Option Block. So let's kick it off. You know how we do that. Before we introduce who's joining me today, it's the beginning of our week. So we got to kick it off the way we have been for a while now. It is time to guess that 80s wrestler via his entrance music. Today, I'm just saying, you know, there are a few names, a few legends that come to mind when you think of 80s wrestling. There's a couple of names that really spring to mind that are iconic, not just of the era, really, but of wrestling for all time. Some people think of wrestling and they just think of one of these couple of people. And this guy we're doing today, he is one of those iconic figures. Perhaps, dare I say it, the most iconic that has ever stepped into the squared circle. I will leave it at that. And you shall hear the music. And you shall decide for yourself. Can you name that 80s wrestler? All right. That's a fun one. This is another one. All those guys who've been around, who were, I should say, around for a while. They had multiple theme songs, obviously. but this is the one that's generally accepted to be his most iconic. And I think if you hear it, you'll know who I'm talking about. Let's mix it up. The reigning champ is lurking there, but let's go out to deep in the heart of Texas. Let's give him a shot, see if he can dethrone the champ. Because, our last guy, Ric Flair, to be the man, you got to beat the man. Let's give him a chance. He is the greasiest of meatballs, Mr. Mark Sebastian from OptionPit.com. A, welcome back to the program. And B, can you name that epic 80s wrestler, sir?
This one was a little more obscure than some of the other ones, right? Am I thinking of the right guy?
The music may be obscure. The wrestler is not. He is perhaps next to Hulk Hogan. He is like the least obscure wrestler of all time.
Really? Okay. So I was initially thinking it could be Hercules. But now I'm starting, and it's not Dusty Rhodes. It's obviously not Hulk Hogan or Ric Flair. Is it Randy? And it's not Randy the Macho Man Savage because he came out to different music than that.
You've named like 8 wrestlers. You got to pick one so you give Uncle Mike a chance.
I know. So I don't know this, but I'm going to go out on a limb. And I'm going to say maybe it's Mr. Perfect.
Interesting choice. You named about 8 iconic 80s wrestlers. So you cleared the deck for Uncle Mike. But no, it is not Mr. Perfect. Unfortunately, no. So now we go out to the uncleest of Mikes, Mr. Uncle Mike TOSAW from St. Charles. I see some guesses coming into the chat. Let's see if any of them can get it. Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, A, welcome back to the program. And B, can you name this iconic 80s wrestler? I could give you more hints, but I don't want to give it away.
Andre the Giant.
Bam! Just like that. Yes, it was Andre. He's kind of, he might be more iconic than Hogan. I mean, he when people think of wrestling, they think of Hogan. They think of Hogan. They think of Andre. I mean, those are like the 2 names, right?
Yeah.
And then maybe Macho Man.
And I'll be honest with you. If it wasn't for your hints, I would not have gotten it. But once you gave the hints, that's what gave it to me.
I tried to dial myself back, but I couldn't restrain myself. I was going to say this is big. I tried not to throw any size ones in there because that would be too obvious. But yeah, that was a fun one. He's one of those guys who had a couple of different runs of music. Oh, our chat was guessing Taker, but the American Badass Taker. Taker actually he started his career at the end of the 80s, so he does technically qualify as an 80s wrestler, but he wasn't really, obviously, the Undertaker until much later. He's more of like a 90s Attitudes Era kind of guy. But interesting stuff. That's what made it fun. His music he's iconic. His music, not so much. It's made it a little bit challenging. As we keep on rolling, you know what else is iconic, of course? It's the trading block.
It's time to break down the latest topics, trades, and trends in the world of options. It's time for the Trading Block.
All right, everybody. Andre the Giant aside, let's see what's giant out here in the markets. And not a lot of giant moves to kick off the session here. It's kind of one of those mixed days where the market's kind of struggling to figure out what it wants to be today and which direction it wants to go in. NASDAQ says, yeah, I'm going up a little bit, up about 0.2%. S&P says, I'm going to kind of hang out here, maybe off about 0.1%. And the Dow says, I'm going to drop a little bit more. I'm going to be off about 0.2%, but not a whole heck of a lot blowing the doors off to kick the day off. Coming into showtime, we had the VIX cash flirting at about a 17, down about 0.5 point from where it was this time last week. By the way, if you want to play along with our crystal ball, we got a great question of the week for you live over there on Twitter at Options. Make your voice heard now. People voting in there. Fast and Furious went live just before the show. VVIX at about a 116. VXX at about a 28. That's down a full point from where it was on our last show. And VolQ at about a 16, down about half a handle from where it was on our last program. Uncle Mike, you remain our reigning defender, despite the fact that the meatball tried to guess just about every 80s wrestler there was. You got it with one guess. So, Mr. Uncle Mike, you get to go first. What is lighting up your tape on a day that I guess if you were exclusive to the NASDAQ would be an Uncle Mike type of day, sir?
I guess so, but really not a lot's lighting up my tape. There's a certain asset class that is moving higher, but I just have a hard time mentioning it without just kind of getting chills down my spine and needing to take a shower after I say it. But because I love the viewers of this show, I'll say it. Bitcoin is actually ahead on the day a little bit, 7%. So Bitcoin's having kind of a big day today, but it's still down a lot from its highs. So nothing too exciting there from that standpoint. Really, aside from that, from the things that I'm watching, We have SPY the S&P is down roughly 3 points on the day, so not a lot of movement there. It's kind of a boring kind of day for that. We were down a lot more earlier, and overnight we were down a lot in the SPOOs, but we just haven't really seemed to pick a direction as of yet. 10-year notes down a little bit, so not a lot there. The big thing that I'm watching that actually is down fairly significantly right now is silver. Silver's actually taking it on the chin a little bit, down almost 4% on the day. And so I think that with where it is right now, if you are a bull on it, if I wasn't all in, as far in as I could be based on my rules right now, I would consider actually buying more of it on this dip. It's held the 20 level, and I'm talking about SLV, of course. It's held the 20 level pretty good. And if you like silver for the long term, or you want to maybe sell some puts to get into it, or whatever the case may be, today may be an opportunity for you. So we have that going on. There are more earnings announcements coming out in the coming weeks. The tech earnings are done at this stage, so that's kind of where that ship has sailed. But I think right now the market's just kind of struggling for direction. We are just a few points off the all-time highs, which we hit on Friday. We did go lower today. We didn't hit a new all-time high today yet, but we still could by the end of the day. You never know. The market just has to move a little bit for that to happen. But overall, there's not a lot happening in terms of price action at this point in time, at least in the stock and bond world. I oftentimes say that if stocks and bonds are both moving in the same direction, which technically they are today, oftentimes one of them corrects, but I don't really think either of them are moving enough to really use that and consider that as an indicator, quite personally. That's what's not lighting up my tape today.
Yes, indeed. Another listener in the chat. Hey, Miss Nichols, you're always late, but I guess you made it, so that's okay. That's good morning. But his guess was a lot of Mr. guesses. You guessed Mr. Perfect, Mr. Meatball. He guessed Mr. Wonderful also. I don't remember what Mr. Wonderful's music was. I'll have to check that out. But that's a conversation for another day. Fortunately, no, it was Andre. Mr. Meatball, sir. Another Mr. on the panel here. What's lighting up your tape today, sir?
Yeah, we have ourselves a slow one today. S&P feels like it wants to go up. They tried to sell it off. They tried to rally it on the open. It really hasn't done much. I would not be surprised to see it go green on the day. VIX weekend adjusted, basically flat. VIX futures, we're at that point where this VIX futures curve that we've been talking about, where VIX futures are trading at such a huge premium, that needs to start sucking out, and we're starting to see that. So despite the VIX being up, this is one of those days where VXX and UVXY are both down. We do see some strength in some of the meme stocks. AMC is up, GameStop is up. This is the first day where we've seen Robinhood up, and we've seen GameStop and AMC up as a trio. Normally, they've been kind of trading negatively correlated. So that's got my eye up a little bit. AMD a little soft. Apple Vol has gotten ridiculously cheap. So for those of you that are looking to go long or short Apple, options about as cheap as I've seen. The one piece of news over the weekend, Berkshire Hathaway did their earnings announcement. It is marginally higher today. It's kind of the bright spot in the industrials today. And then Coinbase, it is off to the races. It is running hot. Continues to just go up and up and up. They have earnings this week. We'll be interested to see what that report looks like relative to the performance of what we've seen out of that stock over the last couple of days.
The chat gave me a hard time because I said I confused them because I said the wrestler was iconic. Is Andre not iconic? Who's more iconic than Andre? It's about it. They say Taker is more. No, there are few, if any, that can be said to be more iconic than Andre. This is kind of like a trifecta of 80s guys, right? You got your Hogan, you got your Andre, and then the third can be debatable. Maybe it's a Macho Man, something like that. But, there are a few others that can be slotted in there. But, and then Taker comes along later. But if you're arguing with me that Andre is not iconic, that's a fight I will have with you. All right, let's go on out now. You mentioned the meme stock. Let's see what's lighting it up out here, Mr. Meatball. Let's see if any of the meme kids can break into our top 10. VIX actually doing some paper today, which is somewhat surprising. Just a tick north of exactly 250,000 contracts as of a few minutes ago. That ADV is still coming down, though, down to about 429,000. And if you listen to Vol Views last week, you heard all the numbers for last week. You'll know why ADV is coming down. VIX options not been blowing the doors off of late. SPY also doing decent paper, closing in on half of its ADV. It's about 1.8 million right now. Its ADV is just a tick over 4 million. So it's closing in on half. So SPY might get there today. And the S also right around where it typically is this time of day, 721,000. The ADV 1.28 million. So that's actually pretty robust in the S as well. So it doesn't look like a lot's going on, but if you dig in a little bit deeper, you can find some pockets of action. The Qs, 696,000, the ADV 1.35 million. So they're right around half as well. And the IWM, aka small caps, they're not feeling a lot of love today. 161,000 contracts. Their ADV is closing in on 700,000. So kind of a light day for small caps. Mr. Meatball, you're just mentioning the meme kids out there. Everyone's hot under the collar about Hood these days. And it seems like from an options perspective, that has cooled off. Hood up about 4.25%, trading right around 57 1/3 today, up about 2 1/3 points. But Hood not even in our top 20 today. Last show, listeners, it was exactly number 20, and it has fallen out of it completely now. Number 20 is actually Roblox. So Roblox doing more. There are some meme kids in there, but not Hood. Let's go on instead now to our actual top 10. And it cost you 179,000 contracts to break into the top 10 today. So you should know if listening to the show for a little bit. That ain't a heck of a lot. And that gets you all the way to Ford. Again, the kind of the one we've been debating for a while. Is it a meme stock? Is it not? Some days it seems like it is. Other days, not so much. Let's see what Ford is up to right now. 13 about 3/4 off about 3 cents. So not feeling too memey today, but good for 179,000 and the number 10 spot on our top 10 most actives. Number 9, Square, 192,000. We got a lot of meme-related, meme-adjacent names in here. Square, 192,000 for number 9. Number 8, back to Riot. Haven't seen them out there in the top 10 in a little bit. Let's see where they're hanging out today. They're at 39, almost a half, up about 4, almost 4.5, about 12.7%. So they're having a good day out there in good old Riot blockchain, aka everyone's surrogate for the crypto space for a while there. 232,000 contracts for Riot. Puts them in the number 8 slot. Number 7, Bank of America, 267,000 contracts. Number 6, we're getting a little bit more memey now. AMC was the reigning king of the memes for a while. Will that continue? Doesn't seem like Hood's going to take it anytime soon. Maybe GameStop will take it back. We'll see. Either way, 269,000 contracts for AMC at number 6. Number 5, Palantir. You haven't heard about them in a while, but they're sneakily making their way back into the top 10. Let's see what they're up to today. $23, almost even, up about $1.25. Nearly 6% on the day. So a nice little day here for Palantir. 323,000 contracts on the tape. By the way, you've heard all this brouhaha about Peter Thiel, one of the Palantir founders, how he's used his IRA to effectively put all of his founders' shares into it. And he has something like a $5 billion IRA now, which is kind of interesting and also maybe a little bit outside the scope of what those accounts were created for. He's trying to get all of his founders' shares all tax-free. So I think Congress going to look askance a little bit at that. But intriguing stuff nonetheless in Palantir on the move. Number 4, Moderna, for obvious reasons. 361,000 contracts. Number 3, yes, I said number 3. It's Apple. 583,000 contracts. That ain't a heck of a lot for Apple, listeners. And also, it's not the top spot. So something weird is afoot. Let's see who could topple Apple. And it's kind of been the same, too, for the last couple of sessions that have been doing it. Number 2, AMD. AMD has been punching above its weight for a while out here. Let's see what AMD is up to today. AMD off about $1.33 or 1.2%, trading a little bit shy of 109, about 108.75, and good for 588,000 contracts and the number 2 spot in our top 10 most active. And number 1 is good old TSLA, good for 593,000 contracts. If you know anything about these names, none of those are really that high. That's usually enough for maybe number 4, number 3 in our top 10. But today is good enough for number 1. Tesla, 16.25. I think I saw someone else give them another upgrade today. Another day that ends in Y. Someone's upgrading or downgrading Tesla, and it's moving 10 handles at least. And today it's 16.25, trading about 7.15 1/3. So that's our top 10 most actives. Like we mentioned, there are still some names popping off this week, including a big one. There's a big one popping off today. That is AMC. That's on the radar after the bell today. We've also got Coinbase tomorrow. So there are some big names popping off still this week. Coinbase after the bell tomorrow. Wednesday, in the land of square burgers, aka Wendy's. Wendy's on Wednesday. There we go. Neo and eBay and Bumble out there as well. Thursday got the Diz popping off after the bell as well. Palantir before the bell on Thursday. So a lot of big names still to come this week if you like to sink your teeth into some earnings. Airbnb also on Thursday. So a lot of big names still to come this week. McAfee, the infamous McAfee, they're on Tuesday. Fubo TV, everyone's favorite. They popped up a few times here. So we're waiting here for the earnings move results. As soon as those are updated to the hot numbers today, we will have them updated for you over there on ye old website, listeners, for you folks to play around with. Meanwhile, though, we'll keep on rolling. It is time for us to play around with some weird activity. It is time for the Odd Block.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by theoptionsinsider.com. It's time for the Odd Block.
All right, everybody. You know what time it is. Time to unleash our Eye of Sauron and see what it fixes its gaze upon today. Going to kick things off. Like I said, kind of a quiet day, so the Eye of Sauron has to look a little bit, but it found some interesting ones, including a nice, weird, and decently sizable one to kick things off out here. We're going to kick things off in REI. No, not that outdoors outfitter you may be thinking of, but actually Ring Energy Inc., ticker symbol REI. This is an oil and gas company here. Ticker symbol, like I said, REI, trading a whopping $2.50. So if you like some cheapy action, we got you covered here today. A year ago, it was trading $1.25. So it's had a good run from there, pretty much doubled, pretty much exactly from there. But it actually sold off a lot in between and got down to about 43 cents. Looks like around early November of last year. So from that level, it's up substantially. You're seeing a huge pop here from there, and actually got much higher than it is right now. It's trading $2.50. It topped out at around 336, hit that level a couple of times. It shot up to that level in March, then March 15th, actually. Then it kind of sold off in April, was trading shy of $2 again. And then it topped out again. I almost wanted to say June 8th because we were talking about that on our show recently. But this time, not June 8th, but actually July 1st. Obviously, the cycle for Ring is going to be a little bit more closely tied to the levels of crude than some other names out there. So July 1st was the other day that it really kind of topped out around that 336 level. And it's kind of been selling off ever since yet again. It sold off pretty hard after that. July 1st was trading that level, and then July 7th was trading 274 again. So this thing has had a rough month or so out here. Let's see what our Eye of Sauron found. Nonetheless, interesting. It's a pretty sizable, looks like an aggressive covered call. The 10,000 of the SEP3s. So not bad, 50 cents out of the money. They got a little bit of room for these. So not the craziest. He's not selling in the money or anything. And he blasted them off for 12 cents. It's impressive because the bid was a dime. He didn't have to hit the bid to get 10,000 off. So maybe a little bit more size lurking in REI than you might have assumed. He sold 10,000 of them for 12 cents. If you're wondering, that's almost an 81 vol, listeners. Worth noting, though, there are earnings coming up, and they are after the bell today. So this is clearly why he's getting so much juice. There's a lot of earnings juice, earnings vol baked into this number. The stock was pretty much right here when he did it, 248 here. So Mr. Meatball, an intriguing one here, earnings related covered call. He only got 12 cents, but then again, the stock's only $2.50. So that works out to almost 5% for the month. Plus, if the stock takes off, he gets that appreciation, obviously. Not the worst covered call I've ever seen. What are your thoughts here on someone blasting away on covered calls in Ring Energy?
Yeah, kind of weird, right? Why are you trying to collect 12 cents on these? Doesn't seem like it's worth it given the cost of the stock. But hey, I guess someone's scraping for yield on this is scraping for yield. It a little not entirely sure it's totally worth it. But hey, it is what it is. I guess if the thing does run up, they make a decent amount of dough on the entirety of the trade from a percentage basis, but you're going to be kicking yourselves if this thing takes off.
Yeah, that's the other flip side of that, of course. If you're holding a $2.50 stock, the reason for it is you're hoping it's going to pop, to 5 or 6 or beyond. So you're obviously capping that. But then again, you're only doing it for a month. You're getting 5% for a month. There are worse trades. What do you folks think out there, listeners? Would you sell a $3 call and a $2.50 name only a month out for 12 cents? Get a nice 5%. Is that up your alley, or is that beneath your levels out there? We'll keep an eye on this one. We'll come back to it, see how he performs. We'll probably know a little bit later today. In fact, we'll probably be able to take these covered calls off for probably a decent chunk of their value, maybe just later this week, depending on how hard these earnings go here. So we'll keep an eye on this one. I like these quieter days. Sometimes we get to explore some weirder names here. Like this next one here. I believe this is a newcomer to the odd block. Weird name, HAIN Celestial Groups. That could be many different things. It could be a spa company, some sort of organic foods. It turns out they produce herbal teas. Oh, this is Celestial Seasonings. And also they make chickens. Celestial Seasonings and chickens under their Freebird brand. So they're kind of all over the place, this name. Ticker symbol HAIN, HAIN, trading right now nearly $41, $40.94. Decent day for them today, up nearly 90 cents or a little over 2%. On the year, let's see what they've been up to. A decent year for them as well. A year ago, they were trading about $33. So not quite 25%, but pretty much close to that. And they've had some fits and starts along the way. So a year ago, they were trading $33 and they kind of bounced around, got up to nearly 40. It looks like in November, they had some rough goings because they sold off down to pretty much about $30 again and were almost threatened to break through it a couple of times. Then they popped back up. On November 9th, they were trading $30 and change. On November 16th, they were trading $37.61. So they shot up. And then they shot up again by January 27th, they were trading nearly $45. And they kind of bounced around a bit. They had a lot of volatility for a creator of chickens and herbal teas. And they've kind of bounced around in this high 40s to low 40s range, seems like, for a while. It's like they topped out on, let's see what day this was, March 26th, right around 46, almost even. And they've kind of been trending lower ever since until today, pretty much. They got down to 39 and change, and then they just popped in the last week or so back up to where they're at now, $40.93. So kind of an interesting and somewhat, they make Earth's Best and Celestial Seasonings and a few other things. So yeah, interesting volatility for a name that makes teas and seasonings. Let's see what our Eye of Sauron found out here. Oh, this is kind of going back to the paper I know you folks love out here. Swinging for the fences call love here. We got someone coming in and gobbling up the SEP 40. So these are in the money calls now. 7,071 times. So intriguing size there. For $1.95, they were lifting that offer. They weren't playing around. These were $1.55 and $1.95. They said, we'll take them all. 7,071 times for $1.95. Let's see. The stock was a little bit lower here. It was 40 and 41 when they actually put this trade up. So about a half a buck lower. So they had a nice little pop in the stock. There are earnings coming out during the lifespan of these options. They're on August 26th. So there's some earnings juice baked in here. Speaking of juice, this is about a 33 vol. So it's not super expensive, but it's not cheap either. Mr. Meatball, what are your thoughts here on a pretty aggressive earnings-related call love here in everyone's favorite maker of chickens and Celestial Seasonings, a.k.a. HAIN Celestial Group, sir?
Well, I know you love Celestial Seasonings. I've seen you drinking your sleepy time tea. I know you love that.
Need it every night before bedtime.
Every night. This is a giant trade. It is a whale of a trade. It's bigger than the entire open interest of puts in this brand. There appears to be kind of one call spread that went up in August. Otherwise, that's about 6,500. Otherwise, this would be bigger than the entire open interest of all of this name. This is a giant trade and not to be ignored. I think that this guy's probably right, probably knows something, and probably an interesting piggyback.
Uh-oh. Mr. Meatball wants to piggyback on this one. I might be hitting his gamma radar. Stay tuned for that. You like this one, listeners? Are you all on board this guy's aggressive love for Celestial Teas? Hit us up. Let us know. This is usually we see these kind of aggressive lifting of offers in like the meme names, the biotechs, not so much in organic chickens and celestial seasonings. So that's what makes it doubly interesting. We're going to keep an eye on this one. This one we're coming back to. What are your thoughts, listeners? Good one, bad one, a little bit of a bridge too far. These calls are in the money now, so he's had a nice pop since he put them on. So he could even be taking some of these off even tomorrow if he wants. Intriguing stuff. We'll keep an eye on these. Let's go back out now to another newcomer. Man, we have a lot of newcomers on this. I like these kind of quieter days. It allows some other names to make their way onto our radar here. This is Mass Tech Inc., ticker symbol MTZ. Looks like there might be utilities here. I'm trying to see. There, for some reason, the descriptions on some of these Littler names not exactly blowing it up here. But this name, ticker symbol MTZ, a year ago was trading 45 and about a quarter. Trading today about $93. So they haven't had a good run since then. They're off $1 today, I should say, off a little over 1%. But on the year, it's been a good year. And they kind of hovered around that range, the low 40s range, for quite a while. Seems like till the end of the year, like November, December, they started trending into the 50s. And they kind of slowly trended up. By the end of December, they were threatening 70. And then by January, they were in the 70s. They had a nice run all the way up to about March 12th. They threatened 100, almost $99 on March 12th. And they kind of gave up the ghost from there, dropped back to about $86. And then they kind of bounced again by May 18th, they were trading 120, pretty much exactly, before rallying all the way up. Take a guess, listeners, what day they topped out on. If you said June 8th, winner, chicken dinner for you. Yet another one. They topped out 122.33 right around that June 8th time frame. And then they kind of sold off pretty hard. So once again, that magical day of June 8th appears on our radar. What is it about that date that seems to be the apex for so many mid-tier and smaller names? I'm not sure. I need to really research that a little more. But by June 18th, it was trading. So I said it was trading 122.33 on June 8th. By June 18th, it was trading $100 pretty much even again. So it sold off pretty hard from there. And it's kind of been bouncing around this par level for a while until recently. It looks like back on, what day was this here? Within the last week, it sold off from $100 back down to where it is right now, $93. So it's had a rough week as well. And since June 8th, it's had a rough time. It's pretty much been selling off for the better part of the last 2 months. So what did our eye of Sauron found out here? You're probably going to guess it's something put related. That's probably what I would be leaning, and you would be correct. It is the AUG 85. So these are still August. They're not playing in September or anything beyond there. Looks like it's the Rock Lobster's favorite. It's the line in the sand put, someone blasting away at 5,545 of the AUG 85 puts. So not that aggressive of a strike. They're about $8 out of the money. Getting 43 cents for those. They actually had to crush the bid. The bid was 45 cents. They went through it to get done. They had to go down to 43 cents to get filled. If you're wondering, that is a 44.5 vol, so still fairly juicy. And again, looking at this chart, you can't say that vol level isn't warranted. It's been moving around quite a bit. Let's see. The stock was 92.5 when they put this up, so a little bit lower. It says has popped a little bit since then. And there are earnings, but not in the cycle for this. The next earnings are November 4th, so obviously they must have just announced recently. So yeah, interesting stuff, Mr. Meatball. What say you about this line in the sand? Not the most aggressive, but he's getting some juice for it. And he's only going out to August, selling a 44.5 vol, getting about the same amount of juice, about almost 44 cents. But what are your thoughts here on this line in the sand in everyone's favorite mystery name, MasTech Utility Services? I guess it's a utility name.
MasTech sounds like a new rapper, doesn't it?
It sounds like something like that, or maybe like a stun gun. I don't know, something like that.
Yeah. This guy did a good job of crushing the vol because the offer is now 45 and the bid is 30 cents. So it wasn't a bad sale. Not a bad line in the sand. You're talking about another 7-8% drop for this guy to take some heat on these. I don't have much of an issue with these.
It says here they engage in the provision of infrastructure construction services. Okay, there you go. That tells me everything you wanted to know. They engage in the provision of infrastructure construction services. So there you go. But you know what's more important are these line in the sand puts. We're going to come back to these. What do you think about these, listeners? You like these? You going to get on board with these? You going to draw that line in the sand as well? Sounds like if you want to, you're going to have a hard time because this guy took all the vol with him when he left the room. But you know who didn't take anything with him? He's just bringing gifts to you in the form of knowledge. It's Uncle Mike. So let's get to it. A little bit of the old strategy block.
It's time to dispense options, wit, wisdom, and education. It's time for the strategy block.
All right, everybody. It's Monday. It's time for our weekly dose of strategery with the Unklest of Mikes, a.k.a. the reigning defending champ of our wrestling theme music, Mr. Uncle Mike. Mr. Uncle Mike, sometimes I'm out there, I'm just blasting away. I'm super aggressive, just super over-levered on some crazy short options, and they erode all the way down to a nickel, and I say, nay, I shall not take them off, sir. I want to let them erode all the way to zero. What would you say to me in such a scenario, sir? Besides smacking me in the face, of course.
I would say you don't listen to the option block very frequently. That's the first thing I would say. I want to go over today, if you have short options and they are around a nickel. And so first off, I want to clarify what I'm talking about. Let's say that you're selling a put for the purpose of getting into a stock. So let's say XYZ stocks at 52 and you want to buy the stock at 50 and you sell the 50 puts and the stock's at, say, I don't know, $50.20 right before expiration on expiration Friday. And you're okay owning the stock. In fact, you'd like to own the stock. Well, if that's the case, who cares? You have the money to own the stock. You're fine with it. And that's what you wanted to do to begin with, especially now in the no commission era with which we live. Let the option either expire worthless or own the stock. There's nothing wrong with that. What I want to refer to today is if you have a short put spread or a short put that you're maybe leveraging a little bit and you don't want to own the stock. And so where I want to go with on this is that oftentimes beginning traders often make the mistake of thinking I want to get every penny with which I can out of an option. And so where I'm at right now, I'm actually in a trade that I am long. I want to be long the underlying, and I've been trying to get long the underlying for a while, and I just can't because it just keeps going up, or I keep getting these puts expiring worthless. But I'm okay with that. But in other trades, if you have a short option at a nickel, it's oftentimes, I would say 100% of the time, if you're levered or if you just don't want to own the underlying, you need to get out. An analogy that I like to use is that I personally have a rule where if I'm in a short spread or I'm in a short put option, I like to get out when I've hit 80% of my potential credit. So in other words, let's say I sold a put for $1. I like to get out when I'm at 20 cents, when I hit 80% of the target. Do I always do that? No, but frequently that's how I do it. That's my general rule that I think makes a lot of sense. The analogy that I like to use is that I want you to take a paper towel and soak it in the sink, right? And then squeeze all the water out of that paper towel. While you're doing that, the paper towel is still going to be a little bit wet. Yeah, you squeezed most of the water out of the towel, but there's still some water in there. Now, I don't care how hard you squeeze. I don't care if you're a world champion Olympic weightlifter. Your grip strength is not strong enough to get every ounce of water out of that paper towel. And I believe that when you get to a certain point with a short option, if you try and wait till expiration, you're trying to squeeze the water out of a paper towel. That's already been squeezed very hard. There's better ways of making money. So that's why I typically like to get out when I get to my 80% of the potential credit, because that way, oftentimes, I can start looking for another way to make money instead of trying to hold on for those last 20 cents. I think that you're better off most of the time going out to the next week, the next month, the next quarter, whatever time your short option is, and starting a little bit early. That's oftentimes a better way with which to do it. In fact, in the 20 years or so that I've been doing this, I don't know of any time where I haven't seen it that way, quite honestly. So I think that it makes sense to get out at a certain point. Now, let's finish to where, let's say that you do decide that I want to be stubborn and I want to hold on to this. Well, as a participant in the business, I love it when you do that. And the reason is that if there's someone on the other side of the trade that's doing it, oftentimes what I'll do is I'll either get out of my short spread, and then if there's no bid on the long leg of a short spread, I'll just hang on to it. It's a free lottery ticket. Probably about once every 4 or 5 years, I'll have an option that was worth maybe 0 cents by 4 cents at the beginning of the day, all of a sudden be worth $5 or $6 at the end of the day. It happens. I think it's happened to me maybe 2 or 3 times in my trading career. But I love it when you do that because I'm on the other side of it. And every 4 or 5 years, I get a nice little Christmas gift, even if it's not Christmas. So I like it when you do that. But on a serious note, don't do that. You're foolish for doing it. If you have the ability to get out of option for a significant, don't try and squeeze out the remaining water in the paper towel. It'll just make your hands sore. Trust me on that. And that is the strategy block for today.
Well done, Uncle Mike. As we keep on rolling, got a little bit of time, so let's get to some of your feedback here on the old mail block.
It's time to take your seat on the All-Star panel as we read your emails, tweets, Facebook messages, website comments, and much more. It's time for the Mail Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Mail Block. This is where, of course, you guys can send in your questions. You can participate in all of our fun polls. Also, if you're part of the secret club, you get to chime in live as well, just like Nichols. Nichols says he likes that REI call. He likes that covered call. He may try to do some of those. You like that 5% for a month? Yeah, it's at least $2.50, the amount of risk you're taking on that one. Not super huge unless you go to town, like Uncle Mike was saying, with the over-levered. Don't do that. But other than that, it sounds like you like your cheapies here, because you also said, I also bought some DNN after Friday's Options Oddities. Seemed like might be a fun wheel candidate for some more. Yeah, DNN, that's the Denison Mines. They were the one we talked about a while ago on the odd block. Remember, they were one of the more infamous odd block trades we had ever seen. An enormous amount of just ridiculous calls went up. There were about 1 month, 2.5 calls, and the stock was trading $1, and they're paying ridiculous levels for them, 30-odd cents. So it was a covered call heaven. And it was one of the better covered calls I've ever seen, just for amount of risk versus reward in it. And it hasn't really hit those levels yet again in terms of just aggressive premium. But they do actually have a decent amount of juice on the vine for what is effectively a $1 stock. It has been bouncing around that one strike for a while. So if you did want it to wheel into it around the one put level and wheel out, if you wanted to wheel out, you can always hold on to it too. But if there are worse names to do, I mean, it's only $1 again, so your amount of your risk is limited. It sounds like you like to do some of your flyers on those cheap names. I can't argue with you. They're not the worst. Let's go on out here to, let's see what you folks have on the brain in terms, you guys have been bugging us for a while. Do some more questions, do some more polls. So that's what we're doing. First off, let's pay off last week's. The hot name on everybody's lips last week was Hood. This week, not so much. It's funny how these hot and high-flying IPOs can kind of come and go. I think it's too early to write the obituary for Hood, but at least from an options perspective, not blowing the doors off today. But last week we asked you, said, hey, Hood, options are live. They're trading up a storm. At least they were last week. The stock was around 60 when we posted that poll. We said the August at the money straddle was trading for $18. That was about a 200 implied vol. If I had said that a year ago, you would have been like, what the hell are you saying? That's madness. Only stupid little biotechs trade that, and only for a short amount of time. And yet now that sounds cheap compared to what we've seen in like an AMC or a GameStop or everywhere else out there. So quite simply, we asked you, are you a buyer or a seller of the straddle at these levels? Even I chimed in gave you 3 choices, by the way. Buy that straddle, sell it, or what are you crazy? I came in on the what are you crazy front. But our listeners said, no, they want to go. You guys are hardcore. You guys are aggressive. You said, we want to sell that thing to the tune of nearly 45%, 44.9% said you are comfortable selling that 200 implied vol straddle in Hood. We said August, so you're still on the hook for that thing. We didn't say weeklies, so that could still come back to rip your face off. But I think most sane people said either buy that straddle at 34.7%, or in my camp, what are you crazy, at about 20.4%. You guys, it was neck and neck for a while. Then the premium sellers came out in force and wanted to blast away on that bad boy. This week, we gave you a more traditional question of the week. Let you play along with the Vol Views crew, test your Vol prognostication powers. We said, hey, quite simply, it's time for you guys to break out your crystal ball. Guess what VIX will close at the end of this week. We gave you 4 ranges to choose from. And we posted this. VIX cash was hovering at about exactly a 17. We gave you the much lower level, shy of 16, so a 15 handle, or dare I say it, even below. But that's all included in the below 16, or the 16 to 17 half range, or the 17 half to 19 range, or the above 19 range. Give you 4 choices. Mr. Meatball, we'll start with you. You've already kind of gave us your prognostication on Vol Views. I'll give you a chance to do a fresh one if you like. And then B, more importantly, what do you think our audience is lining up behind, sir?
Well, my prognostication in vol views is against my current position.
So you say, sir. That's a convenient way to back up your guesses and say, oh, they don't really.
So on the poll, I do think that we're going to see, I think we could see sub 16 this week.
Ooh, so you're in region 1 there. Interesting. Sub 16. Intriguing.
And I think our audience is between 16 and 17 and a half.
Okay. Mr. Uncle Mike, same question for you. If you want to venture into that fire, sir, and hazard a VIX guess for the end of the week, have at it. Play along with our Volatility Views crew. And then B, more importantly, what do you think our audience is voting for, sir?
Agree with the meatball on the 16 to 17 for the audience. In terms of where I think the VIX is going to go, I think we're going to, I'll say low 16s. I don't think we're going to break the 16. I don't think we're going to see the 15s. So I'll say low 16s.
So you're also in that 16 to 17 half range. Is that what you think? You think the audience is there too?
I agree for sure. But I'm definitely more in the lower 16.
Oh, you're in the below 16 camp personally. Okay.
No, lower 16s, slightly above 16. Okay. I don't think we're going to see the 15s.
So for you and the audience, you're in the 16 to 17 half range. And let's see, this went live just before the show, so the voting is just kicking off here. We've got below 16. The Meatballs camp is winning right now with almost 30%, about 29.5% out there, followed by number 2, 16 to 17 half, which again is where we're hanging out right now. So makes sense. Oh, it's just ticked again. Just ticked up. Now VIX below 16 is north of 30, about 31.5%. VIX 16 to 17 half is at about 26%. We've got 17 to 19 at about 23%. And VIX above 19, so feeling the juice, is right around 20%. Again, we've got through the end of the week, so get in there, get your voice heard, make your voices heard. If you have a great prognostication, maybe if you want to go above and beyond, maybe I should put that in there. Say, you want to register for fabulous prizes, to win fabulous prizes, then reply to that tweet also with your actual closing print guess. In our Vol Views margin of victory, 1/10 of a point, maybe fabulous prizes can be yours. So that could be a fun little addendum we could put out there. Let's see. These questions are all are all epic. Let me see if I can squeeze one here. This comes from Mark Davis. This is about levered ETFs. Let's move on from this because I haven't had a chance to read through this, and this looks like it's a pretty lengthy one. Let's go to this. This is obviously for Option Block. BZ Tokyo chiming in on our YouTube. By the way, if you like to listen to the show, and I put listen in air quotes because you can kind of watch it there on YouTube, have at it. I know a lot of you like it that way. It does go out there afterwards as well. So have at it if you like that nice static image of the cover art while listening to the show. We don't judge. BZ Tokyo likes it that way, and he's responding to the show we did, episode 1016, which was entitled He-Man Earnings Season and How to Lure Your Dad to the Dark Side. That was, of course, right after the launch of the new He-Man show where we debated/discussed it at the top of the show. He chimed in to say, the good old days when Long Island Iced Tea became a blockchain company. And support.com. Yeah, I think we talked about unusual activity and support.com on that show as well. And support.com, because a fintech company, and I'm not sure what he's saying there, and He-Man NFTs could be worth billions. Well, I could get behind the last part. He-Man NFTs should be worth billions because they are essentially priceless. The rest of these are all pretty lengthy. We'll have to save these for a show where we can sink our teeth into them. As we keep on rolling into our final segment, it's time to go around the block.
It's time to tell you what we'll be watching on our trading screens until the next episode. It's time for Around the Block.
All right, a lot to parse, a lot to analyze. Let's see how we're looking coming into the end of the show. Not much different from where we were at the start of the show, listeners. NASDAQ still up about 0.2%. S&P still off almost 0.1%. And the Dow still off almost 0.2% out there. So not a heck of a lot of evolution or change during the show. VIX still hovering pretty close to that 17 handle. So not a lot has changed. Let's go back out to our reigning and defending champion, Mr. Uncle Mike, sir. What are you keeping an eye on for the rest of this week until we gather here together on Thursday?
New all-time highs in the SPX, maybe watching that. Watching the 10-year, of course, to see where our yield falls with that. But the main thing I'm really kind of keeping an eye on right now that I think is of a lot of interest to me is silver. We had a little bit of a pullback, and so we'll see where that goes.
We shall see indeed. Mr. Meatball, same question for you, sir. What are you keeping an eye on until our next episode, at least of this show, on Thursday?
Yeah, we had a kind of a weird flash crash overnight in gold and silver that we probably could have spent a little more time on. I'm watching this market. I want to see if we get green today, and I want to see what happens with VIX. If we get the VIX really starting to fall off today, that could lead to another leg higher and potentially a run at 4,500 this week.
Hey, if you want to spend a minute on the sell-off in metals, have at it, sir. I will allot you a minute.
Yeah, well, we had a flash crash overnight. I don't know the exact story. It looks like a fat finger led to some algos tanking gold. Took silver down with it. Gold is now threatening to break GLD is threatening to break 160. That is kind of interesting. Gold vol really heating up. It's about as expensive as it's been over the last 3 or 4 months. So maybe we see some more fireworks in gold.
I'll tell you where we are seeing fireworks. It's in the crypto space. Everything is pretty much up hot and heavy. So the sell-off in the metals leading to a rally in the digital version, at least some people think out there. Bitcoin closing out on 46,000 ETH, north of the 3,000 level. 31, I should have bought more at the bottom. That's what we all say, right? And, of course, a whole bunch more. Nickel saying he's looking forward to crypto. Yeah, me too. We'll be back in exactly an hour, listeners, to break down all the hot action in the world of crypto from a vol, unusual activity, skew, all sorts of good perspectives, and all the hot names, Bitcoin, ETH, pick your poison. If you have a product you want us to talk about on Crypto Rundown, hit us up, let us know. I'll be joined by the blockchain advisor himself, Mr. Bill Ulivari, to break it all down and a whole bunch more. But before we go, let's go back around the horn. Let's start with the Uncle-list of Mikes. Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, folks are intrigued. They want to hit you up. They want to debate crypto with you. They want to talk about the legacy of Andre the Giant. Where should they go? What should they do?
Follow me on Twitter at Mike TOSAW, TOSAW, or check out my website, stcharleswealth.com. This is probably one of the best ways for me to get a bunch of followers or a bunch of at least angry emails. Crypto sucks. There you go.
Uh-oh. Have at him. Crypto sucks, says Uncle Mike. Give him a follow at Mike TOSAW so you can hit him up and just tell him exactly why you agree or perhaps disagree. And Mr. Meatball is always looking for some fun trades out there in the single names on his Robinhood Trader or the Gamma Radar. I forget what it's called these days, but all sorts of fun stuff. Mr. Meatball, if folks want to check it out for themselves, where should they go? What should they do?
Optionpit.com. Just we put out awesome content every day. Just click on the individual letter and click subscribe, and we'll send you that. Follow me on Twitter at OptionPit. And unlike Mike, I like crypto. Crypto doesn't suck. Crypto is cool.
Uh-oh. We have to have a debate right here on the panel. And what's the new thing called? Is it called Gamma Radar? Am I saying that right?
It's the Robinhood Trader. Gamma Radar is what we use in Robinhood Trader.
Oh, okay. I'm getting all the various moving parts confused. Robinhood Trader. I was right the first time. All right, check it out. Robinhood Trader at optionpit.com to learn more. And, of course, if you're listening live, you're part of the secret club. Have a beverage, relax. We'll pump some fun shows in between. We'll be back in exactly an hour to break down the hot and heavy world of crypto. If you have a question about crypto, vol, options, that sort of fun stuff, hit us up, post in the chat. We'll get it in there for the show coming up. Otherwise, we'll see you back here tomorrow, hot and heavy, on the unusual activity front that should have gone out already, who our guest is for the Pro Q&A. But we're going to have Saad, the creator of that cool Mayak Shift shirts, on there. So if you want to talk about how to construct and analyze and hunt for unusual options activity, which I know is a question a lot of you have. How should I be configuring it? How should I be doing this? What's a good way to find this stuff? It's kind of what he does all day. So he's a great one to ask those questions for. So get those questions in now. You can start already on the members hotline or send them out the usual way. That's going to be, I don't have the time for that tomorrow, so that'll be going out. I think that's usually the usual time, sometime in the afternoon tomorrow. And we're back again on Wednesday. Going to do a nice double dose of Education Wednesday, kicking things off with Options Bootcamp. I think we're finally going to do that much anticipated trader psychology episode that Dan's been threatening to do forever. So we're going to do that on Wednesday. And then back again on Thursday, another episode of the Option Block.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions@theoptionsinsider.com.